A shutter slams in the wind, a single clap that cuts the night like a blade. Then silence, the kind of silence that waits, the kind that feels alive. The narrow street lies like a serpent between the stone walls, slick from an earlier rain. No moon dares to show itself. Somewhere in the dark, a dog growls once and then thinks better of it. Down there, in the wet, a man moves. His steps do not make a sound on the cobbles. He knows how to disappear, even while standing in plain sight. Under his cloak, hidden from the night, is a blade. The hilt is worn smooth from years of the same hand gripping it, never letting go. No one speaks his true name. Perhaps even he has forgotten it. In the taverns they call him what they like, but the names mean nothing. What binds him is not a word. It is a life spent carrying debts that can never be paid. Above him the walls rise, stone piled upon stone. The cold heart of a town that eats its own. Banners hang still, as if even the cloth has stopped breathing. The air is thick with the smell of tallow and dung, and something sour from a winehouse door. He stops and listens. A creaking signboard sways. Dogs bark once in a courtyard. A woman's voice lifts and falls like a thread, singing to a child who cannot sleep. Far above, the bell of the church tolls the hour, slow and heavy, each strike like a heart that has lost its hurry. This is the hour when hunger stirs in men who have nothing. The hour when some go to their knees and others pick up a blade. For him, it is the same as every night. The weight of what must be done presses close as the walls. Not the act itself, that has long ago become part of his blood, but the ghost that will follow after. Always there is a moment where the hand hesitates, where another road could be taken. There is always a choice, and always, ultimately, the same step forward. A window above bursts open. Light spills across. The street, white and sudden as steel. It falls over his cloak, over his boots, catching him for one breath like a figure drawn from the shadows. For that breath, he stands still. He does not blink. The light reveals nothing but a man's outline. And then, as quickly as it came, the light is gone. The shutter closes. The street swallows him again. He moves on. Not faster, not slower. The blade at his side rests silent, but the road ahead is written on its edge. At the end of the alley, he will meet the place where oaths are broken. In that meeting, the world will tilt again. And tomorrow, a new ghost will walk beside him, unseen but always there. This is how the city keeps breathing in the dark, by what men do when no one is looking. And somewhere, beyond the walls, in fields, where frost lies silver on the earth, there are lives that do not yet know what this night will set in motion. For even in the smallest alley, with the faintest step, the world turns on choices made in shadow. The bell tolls once more. Slow, waiting, and in its echo, he passes into the next turning of the street, a shadow carried forward, bound to roads that led ever inward. A thin light spills over the roofs, cold as poured tin. Dawn comes unwilling, like a stranger asked inside, and gives no warmth to the stones. In the courtyard behind the tanner's yard, the air is sharp with lie, with hides stretched on racks, with the sour breath of the river that crawls beyond the walls. There, bent over a trough, a man rinses his hands. The water bites as it takes the blood from his knuckles. It coils and blooms red in the shallow basin, drifting away in slow ribbons before the stream swallows it. Soon it runs clear again, but he feels the weight of it in his arms, in his chest. No water can wash that away. Around him, the city begins to stir. Apprentices call each other, their voices rough with sleep. Carts groan over the cobbles. From somewhere down the lane, a friar walks with a rosary of wooden beads that knock together like hollow bones. No one looks up. This is the way of things. A man learns to walk unseen, and the world lets him. He straightens and dries his hands on a strip of cloth. Inside, behind the half-open door, is the small square of life that he tends by daylight. a wooden chest, a cloak folded neat inside, the cord wound tight around it to hold shut what it hides. He lays it there, closes the lid, and turns to other work. The knife for the hides must be sharpened. The whetstone rasps slow and even. The hens need feeding. He scatters grain for them, speaking softly in the simple tongue of the yard, a kindness he cannot offer anywhere else. These are the ordinary tasks of a man who keeps two lives, one that people see and one that no one ever will. But the night clings. It clings like the stench of the tannery, seeping into everything, into the walls, and into him. In the drip of water from the roof, he hears a footstep. In the stink of lye, there's the sour breath of iron. The shutting of a door is the shutting of the street where the world narrows and the blade becomes an answer. He lifts the heavy hides and lays them flat, his arms straining. Tools knock against one another in his apron. Each sound is too sharp, and each silence too deep. The city around him shakes itself awake, the sound of hooves on wet stones, the call of traders setting up their stalls, the cry of gulls that have followed the river inland. But there is a place inside him that does not stir. It lies still waiting. A locked room where shadow and daylight meet, and neither one leaves whole. Every man carries a thing he does not speak. For him, it is this: the hidden road between who he is when the light comes and who he must be when the light is gone. And one day, soon or far, those roads will meet. One will overtake the other. And when that happens, he knows there will be no water deep enough, no prayer wide enough, to wash it clean. As he sets the last hide on the table and lifts the knife to cut, the first bells of the market begin to ring. Their sound rises faint and thin above the tannery roofs like a chain pulled tight. He pauses just a moment. Then he begins to work. The blade slides through the hide, steady and sure. Outside, the world walks on, blind to the mark that last night has left, and blind to what waits in the stillness of the next. And the dawn, cold and pale, keeps spilling over the city as if nothing has happened at all. Mist curls over the river like a ghost that has forgotten its way home. The air tastes of rotting reeds, of wet wood, of old nets left to dry and never taken in. Each ripple of the black water clutches at the worn pier, and a small boat bumps against it with a slow, hollow sound. The rope groans and twists in the damp, like an old bone in a restless grave. In this hour before the first light, when even the bells have not yet woken, he comes here to breathe. Here there are no watching eyes, no market stirring, no shouts in the alleys. Only the water, the reeds, the wide gray sky. He kneels. The boards of the pier are slick beneath his knees. His hand lowers, fingers breaking the skin of the water. And the cold runs up his arm like iron. It bites until he cannot tell where his flesh ends, and the river begins. It is said that a man cannot serve two masters. Yet this is the life he has made. The night gives him the coin that feeds him. The day gives him the hunger that drives him back into the night. Between these two weights, he has no name that is his. Far above, the city broods, a jagged line of roofs and towers pressed against the dim sky. From here, it looks silent, as if all the voices have been swallowed into its stones. Down here, under its shadow, the world feels emptied of sound. The fishermen have not yet risen. The birds have not yet spoken. Even the dogs sleep. From the folds of his cloak he takes a piece of cloth, small enough to hide in the palm of a hand. It is torn, frayed, faded by years. The color that once lived in it has been washed out by rain and by time, but the shape of it has not left him. He holds it gently, as one might hold a relic or the last ember of a fire long gone out. For a moment, the river seems to wait. There is no sound but the faint slosh of water against the pier, the slow breath of the current. He keeps his eyes on the cloth and feels the old world pressing against his chest, a memory that does not grow fainter, no matter how many steps he has taken since. Some nights he believes this is all that keeps him from falling completely into the work his life has become. The river does not care. It moves on, taking whatever is given to it, the rain, the silt, the secrets of men. It swallows and it carries. When the first thin streak of light slips across the water, he lifts his gaze. There in the trembling surface he sees himself. A shape bent by the ripples, a face that might belong to a stranger. And in that face is a question, whether the man who walks the streets by night, who leaves footprints dark as spilled ink, and the man who kneels here by the river, is still the same. The wind comes and breaks the image apart. The pieces scatter into the current, and the water closes as if it had never held a face at all. He folds the cloth and ties it back beneath his cloak. Then he stands. The boards creak beneath his boots. The rope knocks against the pier as the boat shifts, and the mist moves in coils around his legs. Behind him, the city begins to stir. Somewhere, faint and far, a door closes, a cartwheel turns. A voice calls. He turns toward it. Step by step he walks back along the path, leaving no mark but the damp prints that fade even as he makes them. And as he passes from the riverbank into the gray of the waking streets, the mist closes in again, covering the place where he knelt, and the river keeps moving, slow, patient, carrying everything away. Beneath the pale height of the morning sun, the square swells like a restless tide. Its stones are already warm with the press of hooves and boots, the trample of straw ground to powder. And yet, even in this place of color and voice, there are corners where silence hangs like a cloak. It is to these edges that his eyes always go. The cries of merchants ripple through the air. Low Latin, Norman French, the old tongue of the fields. Bolts of wool hang like river banners, dyed red with madder roots, bright as wounds. Salted meat leans against pottery, onions hang in ropes, and the smell of cider drifts from an open jug, thick and sweet in the summer heat. Bees circle the apples. Flies settle on the skins of rabbits laid out in rows, their glassy eyes staring without seeing. Among all this, he moves unnoticed. The hood hangs low. Each step is placed as if the stones themselves might listen. The hand that has gripped a blade in shadow now reaches, slow and steady, for a green apple. The merchant, distracted by another call, takes the coin, does not see his face, and turns away. He finds a bench by the well, its wood worn smooth by years of waiting. The apple turns in his hand, light as a small weight, and he sits. Here, the noise of the square gathers and folds over him, a wall of sound he does not have to answer. Children run, chasing a hoop that clatters when it falls. A smith strikes at iron somewhere beyond the awnings, every blow ringing like the call of a bell. Two fishwives argue over a copper piece, their words sharp, their faces sharp, but this is the simple noise of life. It is the other world, the one he tries to hold to in the hours when the moon has set and the work of night is done. He lifts the apple and takes a bite. Its flesh is crisp. Juice spills down his thumb, sticky, sweet, and cold. For a moment he lets the taste remind him of a time before all this, a time when fruit was just fruit. Then, in the far corner of his sight, the weave changes. A figure moves against the flow of the square. A deep blue cloak, long and clean, where all others are patched. In the figure's hand, a scroll. The wax on it catches the light like a drop of blood. He watches, and though the crowd surges, the figure does not hurry. They move like someone who knows paper can weigh more than stone. The blue passes, vanishes into the turning of bodies, and the square becomes itself again. But the air feels different. The threads of two lives draw close, and he knows. Even before he swallows the bite, even before he rises, he knows that the river of the night has bent its course toward him once more. He stands. The apple, half eaten, is still in his hand. The juice runs down the edge of his wrist, a thin line of sweetness over old scars. Around him, the square spins, Haggling voices, spinning wheels, the clang of iron, and he steps into it, one figure among hundreds. But the current parts for him, as it always does, though none see it. He passes beneath the awnings, past the tables, out of the light, following the path that has no name. Tonight, the square will empty, the winehouses will shutter, and under the new moon, when the roofs are silvered and the dogs stop barking, he will hear the walls whisper again, calling him back into the life that will not let him go. And on the other hand, unseen beneath his cloak, the apple drips, leaving small bright marks on the dust that vanish as soon as they are made. A low wind moves over the open ground like a whisper that has forgotten its own words. The fields lie wide beyond the city gates, silvered by a thin morning light, their furrows dark with last night's rain. Here, where the walls no longer press, the air is soft with the smell of damp hay and soil newly turned. The weight of stone and shouting streets loosens from his shoulders with every step, and yet something deeper does not leave him. The earth is awake. It breathes in the slow, patient rhythm of the men and women who bend to it. Far ahead, the reeve stands with the staff in hand, watching as they labor, as the blades of their hoes bite the clay. The soil is heavy, every strike sinks shallow. Their backs are bowed, and the damp clings to their tunics, to the coarse cloth. At their waists, they do not speak. Even the birds do not come near them, as if this part of the world has been given over to a silence of its own. He walks to the edge of their land, where the field breaks into a low stream thick with reeds. Here, he stands, a figure apart, his cloak drawn tight against the thin wind. These are not his people, not in law, not in oath, and yet he feels them in a way he cannot name. The lines carved into their faces by hunger, the red of their knuckles, cracked by frost, the dust that dries white on their hair, all of it is the same weight that has shaped his own hands. A life forged in quiet and endured in shadow. From time to time, one of them straightens, pressing a hand into as small of a back that aches too soon for its years. And when they look up, they do not see him, only one does. A girl, maybe 10 winters. Thin as a reed, her hair caught back with a strip of worn cloth. She holds her hoe as if it is heavier than her own body, her fingers wrapped tight around its rough handle. For a moment, she looks directly at him. No fear, no question. Just eyes that have seen hunger long enough to stop looking for answers. And in that stillness between them, a part of him shifts, remembering a time when he might have been that small. Her name is called Sharp, Impatient, and she turns. The spell breaks. She folds herself back into the rhythm of the work, into the slow rising and falling of those bent backs that seem to sink deeper with each breath. The wind picks up, running its cold hand across the grass. From the stubble of the field, a lark bursts upward, beating fast, its song trembling like silver. It climbs and climbs until it is only a flicker against the pale sky, free in a way that has no place on earth. He tilts his head and follows. It has eyes on that vanishing point and wonders, for the briefest breath, what shape a life might take if it were ever loosed from the chains of either duty or hunger. The fields behind him close like water after a boat. Before him, the road runs back toward the city. The walls rise again, their edges like the broken teeth of a vast blind jaw. He turns, he walks, and with every step, the earth that had opened so wide begins to narrow until once more the path draws him into the waiting stone dot. By the time the gates come near, the sound of the lark has faded, and only the smell of tilled earth clings faintly to his cloak, a ghost of a freedom that was never his. Ahead, the city breathes, restless, and its shadows stretch long across the ground, waiting to take him back. A single flame bends and wavers in the damp. It casts a narrow circle on the cellar wall, breathing light onto stone that sweats with cold. In that circle of trembling gold sits a man, hunched forward, shoulders like broken wings, drawing steel across the whetstone. The sound is slow, even, a rasp that seems to scrape the air itself, carving silence into thinner and thinner pieces. The air is heavy here. It smells of wet stone, of old dust that has not been stirred in years, of tallow smoke from the candle that gutters with every draft that comes through the cracks above. There is no fire, no warmth, only the sound of metal against stone and the faint, muffled footsteps of a life that moves above him. Unaware of the shadow below, the blade in his hands catches the light for a moment, a thin edge shining as if it were made from something finer than iron. He lifts it and looks into that brightness. For the length of a single breath, another face looks back at him, a boy's face. The boy he was before nights like these, before the coin that waits in the small wooden chest beside him, the coin that is never enough, never clean, never free. The chest sits with its lock rusted, half buried in shadow. Inside is his reward, though no reward can reach as deep as the debt that lives in his bones. The coins do not glimmer. They only weigh. And so he lets them rest. He wipes the blade with a cloth, slow, careful, as though the act of cleaning it might wash something unseen from his own hands. He slides it back into its sheath. In flickering candlelight, the blade line disappears. But the sound of it against stone stays in his head, circling there as if it will never stop. On the wall, a spider builds. Its legs move in patient rhythm, drawing out a pattern that catches no eye but his. Round and round it spins, weaving a net from nothing, a trap that has no beginning and no end. He watches it for a long time, as if the secret to all of this might be hidden there, in the quiet stubbornness of a creature that never leaves its own work. There is no answer. There is never an answer. He pulls his cloak across his shoulders, stands, and looks once more at the chest. He does not touch it. The lock stays closed. The narrow stairs rise before him, close and steep, their boards slick with damp. He climbs them slowly, each step creaking underfoot. When he reaches the top, his hand rests for a moment on the heavy door, the wood worn smooth where he has touched it so many times before. He pushes it open. Night takes him. It presses close, colder even than the cellar, carrying with it the scent of rain and ash. Behind him, the door swings shut, and the faint breath of the candle dies in the dark. The walls of the cellar are left to breathe alone, the spider still spinning in its corner, and the ghost sound of the whetstone, turning, lingers. As he steps into the empty street, the world above does not see him. The city sleeps, its stones slick with mist, its windows shuttered, but the blade at his side remembers. It is as sharp as the hunger that guides him, as sharp as the life he can never lay down. And with the wind rising like a whisper through the alley, he begins to walk once more toward the place where debts are paid. Somewhere ahead, there is another door, another night, another coin waiting to be dropped into a chest that never fills. And the road between them, silent as a blade drawn in the dark. Rain falls like a slow curtain over the city, steady and unbroken, washing the stone until it gleams in the torchlight. The drops strike the roofs, the gutters, the wooden shutters of narrow houses until the sound becomes one long breath of water, drumming on every surface. The alleys below run like narrow streams, carrying the dirt and straw of the day into the dark, and the sky above shows no star. Along the top of the wall, a figure moves, silent and sure-footed. His hood is drawn forward, heavy with water, so that only his mouth is seen beneath the drip of the rain. He does not wipe it away. The cold has been with him too long for him to feel it now. Tonight the air tastes of wet stone and rust. The torches hiss in their brackets, their flames crouched low as the wind drives the rain sideways. The guards, their faces red from the wet and the wine, doze in their corners, cloaks drawn like wings around their shoulders. They do not see him pass. They never do. He knows these walls better than they do. He knows every loose stone, every stretch where the mortar crumbles, every blind turn where no lantern reaches. These walls have been his road, his hiding place, his unspoken ally, holding all his footsteps as they hold the weight of the city. For a moment he lets his fingers drag over the slick, cold stone. The rain washes even that small touch away, as if the wall itself refuses to remember. Below, a voice rises. A drunkard in some unseen alley sings a hymn learned long ago, each note stumbling, the words spilling out like prayer and laughter mixed together. It echoes narrow paths and dies against the walls. Farther off, the bells begin. Their sound rolls out from the cathedral, solemn, heavy, calling the city to its prayers. But in these shadows, another prayer is being made. A quieter one, written not in words but in deeds that no one will speak of. The road curves. The stones beneath his feet shine like oil in the rain. And there, where the wall bends inward, into a small forgotten arch, a figure waits. Its shape is no more than a shadow in a deeper shadow dot. From the dark comes his name. Only once, soft as breath, he does not answer. The figure steps closer, and from its sleeve extends a hand, a folded piece of parchment pressed into his palm, sealed with a blob of wax the color of dried blood. For a moment, their eyes meet, though neither sees much in the dim light. Then, the hand is gone. The shadow turns, vanishes down a stair that drops into blackness. No sound of footsteps remains. He stands alone in the rain. The parchment grows damp in his hand. The wax softens, and he feels the ink begin to blur beneath the paper, as if the words themselves are trying to fade. But still he does not open it. Not yet. The water slides down his face, down his cloak, pooling at his boots. The world around him waits, holding its breath. He slips the letter inside his cloak and draws the hood lower, hiding his eyes. Then, without a sound, he moves again. The wall carries him forward. The city closes its arms around him, swallowing his shape into the rain-soaked night. Somewhere below, the hymn begins again. Somewhere far ahead, the bells still toll. And between them, he walks, a silent line drawn between one world and another. Between the life that holds him here and the one that waits for him in the ink sealed beneath his cloak. By dawn, the streets will shine like polished bone. But before the light comes, another path will be chosen. Another shadow will fall across these stones, and the rain will hide all traces of where it led. The first sound is the bell. It rolls from the heart of the cathedral, heavy and slow, striking the wet air like a blacksmith's hammer upon iron. Its echo lingers over the city, over the narrow streets and the sleeping courtyards, until even the rain seems to pause between its tolls. The cathedral itself rises through the mist like a mountain, carved from a dream. Its towers vanish into low clouds, its stones darkened by the steady rain, and its windows, high and slender, gleam like deep pools of red and blue glass. Every step toward feels heavier, as though the earth itself draws him down. Inside, the air is thick. The scent of incense burns in the throat, beeswax clings to the breath, and beneath it all lies the damp, unshakable smell of centuries, stone and footfall, and the dust of 1,000 whispered prayers. Shadows swim in the arches above. From them comes the sound of the choir, a slow chant that climbs and falls like a tide, unbroken. Ancient. He moves through the side door unseen, the hood pulled low so that he is only another figure in a place that holds so many. The nave stretches before him, vast, yet even here he keeps to the edges. Candles line the walls like a procession of stars, their flames bending as the doors close behind him. There, in the hush, he kneels, not in the open, but in an alcove of shadow, where carved saints stare with unseeing eyes. He does not bow to them. He bows only to the silence that still lives in this place. The light through the stained glass falls upon the flagstones in broken colors. Blues and reds, green and gold, shapes of stories no longer told. It paints his hands as he rests, them on his knees, hands that have held a blade, hands that have closed the eyes of the dead. His lips move, but no prayer comes out. He does not ask forgiveness. Forgiveness is for those who believe the past can be washed away. He comes for something quieter, to hear his own heart again, beneath the chant, beneath the weight of all he carries. And in silence, it speaks to him like a drum deep in the earth, dot around him, the faithful murmur. Women with rough, reddened hands kneel on cold stone. Merchants, still smelling of the market, close their eyes. A soldier makes the sign of the cross over scars that will never fade. Each word they whisper rises with the smoke of the censers, and together the voices build a wall of sound that almost hides the truth, that none of them will be answered. He looks toward the altar, past the pale haze of smoke. And there, where the shadow pools, a man in a dark robe walks slowly to a bench. No one notices him but him. The man kneels, his head bent as if in prayer, and then, without a glance, slides a small pouch beneath the wood. It makes no sound. There are no words. The man stands and drifts like another ghost. Porch waits, silent, as the chant rises. Its presence is as heavy as a stone dropped into deep water. It is not gold alone. It is a summons, a task, another weight to bear. He closes his eyes, breathing the thick air. Stained light paints his closed lids. He waits until the man has gone, until the footsteps fade, and the only sound left is the low hum of voices and the slow heartbeat of the chant dot. Then he stands. The hood hides his face. His shadow slides across the floor as he crosses the great nave, unseen among so many others. When he passes the bench, his hand moves only once. A gesture so small, it seems nothing at all. The pouch vanishes beneath. His cloak, candles flicker as he nears the door, their flames bowing in the draft that follows him like a farewell. Behind him, the choir swells higher. The chant seems to chase him, but his steps are steady as the rain outside. The door opens, and the city's breath rushes in, cold, wet, alive with the sound of water on stone. He steps through it, leaving behind the solemn light. And once again the night folds over him. The bells call out across the city, their notes bending in the wind. The rain falls harder now, streaking across the square, washing the colors from the stained glass so that only darkness remains. He pulls his cloak tighter, the pouch pressed to his side. Its weight is not heavy, but it changes the night. Somewhere, in these streets, a task waits, and the hour grows short. He does not look back at the cathedral. There is no need. The stone towers will watch for him whether he faces them or not. And so he walks, his boots silent on the wet stones, carrying the quiet of the holy place into the restless dark, toward whatever name will be written next upon the city's unending list of the lost. Ahead, a single torch bends in the wind and then goes out. Beyond it, the road falls to shadow, and there the next chapter waits. A branch cracks in the dark, sharp as a whisper of bone. For a moment the whole field seems to listen. The night beyond the walls has no stars. It lies heavy, a sky of iron, pressed down on the earth so close that the twisted trees look as if they are trying to hold it up. Far from the city's crowded breath, the world is reduced to a small circle of flame. No larger than a hand cupped against the wind, it flickers at the base of an old oak whose roots grip the soil like black claws. He sits beside it, wrapped in a cloak soaked at the hem with dew, his back against the bark that smells of rain and age. The grass is wet. It clings cold to his boots, cold to his hands. Beyond the fire's reach, fields roll in black waves. Nothing moves but the mist curling like smoke along the hollows. Frogs croak low by a hidden stream. Somewhere an owl calls, the sound drawn thin and strange by the night air. This is a different kind of silence than in town. This one does not watch. It does not judge. It only lets him lie there as though he were no one at all. The blade rests at his side. He does not draw it for killing now. He draws it because its weight is a familiar answer in a world that no longer gives answers. The steel catches the small, quivering light of fire. It runs along the edge like a silver river, broken by the nicks and scars of too many nights. The grip, worn smooth where his fingers have held it for years, feels like a memory that has never left him. He looks at it long. In its pale reflection, he sees the boy he once was. A boy who believed that choices were clean. A boy who did not yet know how the world bends a man until he walks like a shadow of himself. He wonders what it might be to leave the blade here, to lay it down at the base of the oak, to let it sink into the damp earth, and to stand and walk into the open dark with empty hands. For a breath, the thought is so strong he can almost feel the weight leave his body. The shoulders loosen. The heart grows lighter. The ghosts fade, but he knows it is only a thought. The city waits. The night waits. And when dawn comes, as it always comes, there will be no one else to hold this blade but him. A wind passes over the fields, bending the grass, rattling the dry leaves still clinging to the oak. It lifts the smoke from the small fire and carries it upward, where it disappears into the starless sky. He lowers the blade and sets it across his knees. For a while, he does nothing but listen to the slow breath of the earth. No orders, no voices, only the sound of the stream and the slow beat of his own heart. Hours pass this way, marked only by the cooling of the fire and the way the mist creeps closer. At last, a thin sound comes from far away, a rooster crowing beyond the horizon. The first thread of day unwinds from the east, faint and gray, touching the low clouds above the fields. He rises. The blade slides back into its sheath with the ease of a habit older than memory. With the heel of his boot, he stamps out the last of the embers. The smoke curls like a final prayer. He stands there a moment longer, looking at the oak. In another life, perhaps, he would have left the blade here. But this life does not let go so easily. The city lies ahead, hidden behind walls that rise like stone teeth, waiting to swallow him again. He pulls the cloak close, sets his face toward it, and begins to walk. Behind him, the fields grow quiet. Ahead, the road narrows, leading him back to a place where the night never truly ends. Even when the sky turns gold dot, and as he goes, the first light spreads slowly over the land, but it does not touch him. It only lengthens his shadow on the road, stretching it far ahead, as though it already knows what waits there. A white breath curls from his lips and vanishes into the dark. The bells have just tolled, slow and hollow, rolling through the empty streets like waves on stone. The city lies under a coat of winter glass. Every roof glitters with frost. Every step on the cobbles cracks the thin ice that clings like a skin. The wind comes hard from the river, raw and sharp, cutting the ears, finding the gaps in his cloak. It carries with it the smell of iron from the forges, the sour tang of the tanneries, the faint smoke of wood too wet to burn clean. He pulls the hood low over his brow, the cloth stiff with cold, and moves through the last of the alleys where the city thins to fields and the world grows open. Ahead lies the bridge, a narrow wooden span, hunched over the black water like an old back bent with years. Its planks are rimed with frost. They creak and groan as he steps onto them, the sound carrying far in the stillness. Below, the river churns around chunks of ice, its surface shining like glass where the moon touches it, then breaking into ink where the wind disturbs it. Halfway across, he stops. The boards tremble under his boots. He looks down. The current drags all manner of things beneath him. A branch stripped bare, a pale bird carried limp on the water, fragments of broken wood. All of it swept in the same direction, all of it pulled to the sea. The river takes everything in time from inside his cloak. His hand draws the folded parchment. Its edges are frayed, the creases softened by the many times he has opened it, stared at it, closed it again. He holds it for a while in the cold, looking at it without seeing the words. He knows them all too well. Short words without kindness, but with weight heavy enough to bend the path of a life. He opens it once more. The ink, blurred by dampness, looks like old scars. There's nothing more for him to read here. He tears it slowly, the sound sharp in the frozen air. The parchment breaks like brittle bone. 2 pieces, then 4, and at last he lets them go. They drift from his fingers like weak leaves, twisting and turning as they fall. Wind catches them, scatters them, and the river takes them. They spin on the surface, then vanish into the blackness, between the shards of ice. Gone, as if they were never there. For a moment he stands still. The cold bites to the bone, but something else has loosened its hold. It is a small thing, but he feels it. The weight of those words, those commands, those nights just a fraction lighter. The bridge groans again as he moves. The frost cracks under his boots as he crosses to the far side, into the waiting dark of the other bank. Behind him, the city still lies under the frost, holding its breath. Ahead, the streets climb once more into the maze of stone and shadow. The towers rise like black teeth against the faint, colorless sky. His hand drifts to the hilt at his side, not to draw it, only to feel that it is there. The road is not finished. Even when a page is torn, the book remains. A dog barks in the distance, thin and restless. A shutter opens and closes in the wind. The smell of smoke grows stronger as he nears the houses, and then the bells begin again, marking the hour before dawn, slow and patient. At every toll, sound rolls through the narrow streets. In its echo, the city seems to wake and listen. The frost gleams white on the stones as he walks back into it, leaving the black river behind. Somewhere above, a faint light begins to stir, cold as steel. The night loosens, but it does not end. For the city waits, silent, patient, and he walks into it, as if the walls have been holding their breath only for him. And beyond these walls, where the dawn has yet to break, something else is already moving, already calling him toward the next. Shadow,